27.
20, 19, 18, 16. Be the first company to talk.
So, hi everybody. Welcome back to the Feedback Cafe. This is the last time we're going to have this discussion, conversation, call it whatever you want to call it. And we have not much time and 6 shows to talk about. So today, new rules. It's not going to be 20 minutes for each company, but it's going to be 15 minutes for each company. Get ready for that. I'm going to set the alarm. And another new rule, and very quickly, just like me, with full of English mistakes, but very quickly, please. And new rule, we're not following yesterday night schedule because 2 girls of the help me out with Poliana needs to leave, so we're starting with their show first. Of course, whoever is interested in the England match against Sweden can just ask me for the match and I'll tell him how is it going. Hopefully England will win because we love England, right? We love England, just like you say when you come to Italy, we love your food and your weather. So let's start with the first group. Is it me starting? It's you.
But, I mean, it's very simple. So if you can just talk about your piece and about the longest version of the piece, because we know it's been cut for the festival.
No,
and
it's not.
Sorry,
we are doing. We are still doing the piece.
Oh.
It's a work in progress.
Here it's written its full length is 60 minutes, so it's a mistake.
It's wrong.
Oh, come on.
Fake news.
I mean, just a reminder to talk with the microphone because we are live streaming on Facebook. So, yeah, nothing, just a reminder. Anyway, so you can talk a little bit about the development of the piece. So, okay. Thanks.
So, I'm Poliana. Christine, Irene, Carla, Mona, Steve Purcell, they are my team. And this piece, Here Always, Aquí Siempre, is a piece for 4 women of 4 different generations and their lives and their relation with dance. We started in 2017. We started very slowly by fragments, just like us together, and then Carla and then Mona just came in the 2018. We are working on the piece. This is the first time we really show the work. We did some, in the residencies we had, we just showed the piece in the studio. And I think it's basically this. I almost prefer to receive the questions and.
We have a first question, then obviously we hope that you have others. And in your synopsis, you say that you talk about archaeology of knowledge made present. Can you explain this concept?
Yes, well, actually the synopsis I sent is not this one. The marketing, they just...
Okay, another fake news.
No, it's not a fake. No, it's serious. It's not fake. I think what I understand, they try it to translate, to be more, I don't know, connected with the audience. I think it's the relation I want to bring, that in their bodies through dance, in the presence of the body, how can the archive of everything they lived and they are in their relation with dance are present. I think this is everything they know or everything they gonna know. I don't know. I think this was our main idea. I don't know if you want to comment something. No? That's it. It's
even, you're even too short. I mean, you got a few minutes left. No, we kind of liked this concept through the synopsis because it was pretty much clear about the show. Because it felt like, especially in the last scene, it really felt like that there's something that we can share throughout times, like something that you love or something that signed your life, and you can just pass it. But the specific thing it was passing through the bodies and not through like memories or telling about it or saying, oh, when I was young and blah, blah, blah. It was just, let's dance it together, and it was a generational crossover. That's why that was...
completely...
So they write it correctly.
No. It's just also for me because the order of the English normally is the words. It's different from Spanish or Portuguese. So I really have, when I listen, I really have to think the whole concept to really understand. You know, in not saying whatever. But I wouldn't be able to write something like this. You know what I mean? But what I do, I really feel deeply connected, and also my way of working is really through body and really through being body to body in the studio together and practicing a real listening through each other and passing the information in between us until I started to shape what is really happening. I don't know if I'm being clear.
Yeah, I guess so. Of course, we'd love this to be discussion or a conversation or whatever. So if anybody has any question or thoughts or thing that wants to say, or a long awkward silence, perfect. And so we're gonna ask you if you have a question for the audience, like something.
We have one.
Okay. So the question is, what, if anything, would significantly have improved your experience of the piece you saw last night? And please only use 1, 2, or 3 words.
Longer.
So what would improve, because obviously we're partway through a process, from your experience, if you saw the work last night, what would improve the experience so we can take that feedback into the studio?
So they're basically asking to co-direct the show. Yeah, no. Please survive. And then you'll have to answer.
I would say that watching the show, I had the feeling to be really a spectator of something that wasn't really about me or us. So I think that this beginning is really a lot connected to the life and bodies of the performer. So I wonder how could I be more in this process? I felt like I was really watching something that didn't concern me a lot.
Okay. No, I receive. I
think one of the things we've been working on in the studio is how can we make a piece of work where the spectator is just not there to consume it. That there's a shift between watching and consuming to bearing witness to the things that happen in front of them. Because so much work, you see a work, you see another work, you see another work. So it's how we can make that shift in how honest and how simple the work can be, so that you bear witness to these 4 performers trying to be present to themselves rather than being overtly present to you so you can just consume the work. So we're just exploring a different dynamic in the work itself. So we're not setting out to say, this is for you, because actually if the work is strong enough, the work is for each other, for the 4 women in the space. And if that is strong enough, then maybe your relationship to witnessing that is very different from your experiencing of just consuming a show, maybe conceived in a different way.
Just, I don't know, maybe, of course I want people to be able to relate their lives, but maybe another artist doesn't want this, but I really would like that if someone is watching the show, that they could see themselves at some point reflected in their history. Of course, this is something I would like to happen. And of course, I'm not successful every single time, and there is different sensibilities. But I really, I mean, my way of working until now, it's really something trying to build, to craft a scene, and how can I work with the performers that they live a process, and maybe through the image, through this kind of states, they can arrive. Maybe they can invite the audience, but just only through the contemplation of the actions in the scene. You know what I mean? Not really establishing, engaging directly the audience. I don't know.
And that's really the point, actually. And I think there are 2 completely different approaches. Because if, as you said the first time, it was just, the idea of showing an object of language. It won't be consumed. And so it's strong enough. It's about their stories and what we see, actually. But there are some elements in that create some short circuits. For example, the use of photographs of of Christine, amazing pictures, an amazing dancer. But seeing her younger and her now dancing again differently, it creates a show sequence. And somehow, instead of creating something that is not consumed, it creates something that talks about something that I don't know if really concerns me. So for example, the same thing, but without really trying to mock the show sequence that can be created, because it becomes anecdotic. About, just anecdotical? Yeah? So it speaks about her and you, and what could be if the will is the one to connect about. So what can be connecting the themes of intergenerational meetings and so on? Because of course, an audience is not a monolith. It's made by people younger and older with more or less experience. So if this may be a connection point, I would be aware of elements that could create a show sequence.
I don't know if I said in the presentation of the work that's what the starting point of the work. It's a documentary dance piece. I mean, the starting point was their lives. Of course, for the starting point for then creating the fiction, because everything in the end, of course, is their pictures, it's her mail, it's their lives. But of course, it's crafted, I'm building something over their own histories, no? I have a lot of thoughts about this, mainly with the scene of the pictures and her dancing. It's a moment I really think for how people will receive. Can people relate their own history? It's just about how dancers relate to seeing this, how actors relate to seeing this, and how another people just relate to this. Of course, I don't have, nowadays I'm building the piece yet, and I don't have enough. I already know Christine. There is a lot of meanings that I already have because I'm already in, no? So it's also important to me to share and listen different experiences towards the dispositives I'm using to see if people get out of the piece, if people are kept out of the piece, or this makes people feel invited to get in and relate to the material I'm trying, through her particular life or their particular life. People can relate with their own lives. I'm working on it yet. I don't know the correct solution, but I think about it, but I don't know exactly how it's gonna, the way it's gonna develop.
We have one last question or thought.
I mean, it was just more something to say, and it was kind of jumping back a bit, but it was a very particular choice of words, bearing witness, which means a very specific thing. But I think bearing witness to this event, but then also somehow it allows us all to bear witness to events that we will never see and we haven't seen and won't be able to see, and somehow bearing witness to something that isn't there but is there through these bodies, I think is somehow what the piece is trying to do for me anyway. And the idea of bearing witness to something that's happened in the past is an interesting concept. That's all I wanted to say.
Cool, that's it. I didn't say the name properly, so it's Aquí Siempre, Here Always, Poliana Lima. Round of applause, please, for the first guest of the Feedback Cafe.
Bye, thank you very much.
Bye, have a nice trip. So, skipping to the second one.
Yeah, the second one is take care of yourself, of Most, right? Most. Yeah, Mark Osterhoff. Yeah, from Switzerland. So, if you can talk about your piece and how does it go on in, if there is a full-length piece or if you are rehearsing it?
There is no full-length piece, and I'm not rehearsing it either. But I have, that's the 4.0 version somehow, because I created in 2016 the first version that was longer, and after I had to chop it to 15 minutes for a festival that was like another version, and after out of this shorter version I made another one, and after I made another one, and that's like the fourth version. And I have ideas to keep on going. I have like things that would involve the audience a bit more directly. Yeah, I would like to do things. So far I didn't have opportunity to present it, but it's also, this year is the first year I'm really touring it, so yeah.
Cool. And first question for us is, what's the point for you of putting your life, we can say, or at least your body at risk? I mean, what do you want to, what do you want the audience to, I mean, what, sorry.
I think
what do you want to achieve in the audience?
Yeah. Well, now I know because I did it somehow many times, but I didn't know what I wanted to project on the audience. I think that the audience is always right, and if the audience think that was talking about this, it is totally true for this particular person in the audience. And so I don't know if I have like I have my points, but if the people in the audience doesn't get what's my point, but they have another one, for me it's totally fine. So I can say my points, of course.
Of course.
I think it's well, I like, since as long as I can remember, I think do little bit dangerous things like climbing trees or things like this, that I really thankful for my parents for not stopping me. They just kept on saying like take care of things. Yeah. but but and I see, and particularly in England, actually, there is in all it's very global, but in England, I think it's very present, this thing of personal unresponsabilization, déresponsabilisation individuelle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Individual responsibilization.
Yeah. No.
Being responsible individually.
Yeah, there is really this thing that we are taking by our hand all the time. Like, watch out, don't like. In your trains in UK, it's written, don't put your feet on the seats in the train for safety reason. Like, what? Like, am I gonna fall if I put my feet? Like, there is really it goes far. It's written everywhere for your safety. CCTV in operation, and of course Switzerland we have the same. Everywhere is the same. I see kids playing. I have another performance where we have a wooden storage pallet. You know? Yeah. I don't know how to say this in English. Yeah, those ones. Yeah, but the more classical one, the smaller one. And we build things with it, and we climb on them, and it's unstable, and we fall, and we hit pretty strong, and the body are. Like hitting each other, but it's like but somehow it's soft, and I performed this for kids like 12 years old more or less, and after I had to go to the organization, and I just left the palette in this school, and they were saying, oh no, we have to leave someone next to it because we don't want that the kids climb on it. And that's exactly my point, actually. I want kids to climb on it after. I want them to fall. I want them to get hurt. I got really bad no, but really, I had really bad injuries. I think I'm a better person after having those injuries. And yeah, of course, well, we have to take care, that's for sure. But yeah, so, well, I think that's my point. I think we feel very much alive when we have danger around us, and so yeah, I think that's what I do.
I think this is pretty much genetic. Like, you have this gene that wants you to risk your life. That's and not all of us have the same gene working in his body and in his mind. Someone sure has. Okay. Any thoughts or questions or things you want to share with Mark? Even concerning kids and the fact that we should put them on risk. Okay, so great. No, yes, it's always the same. Then you need Mike to answer.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm always amazed when I see dangerous stuff, because I wonder, you sort of touched upon it in that your parents let you climb trees and just said, take it careful, but how do you go about learning how to drop a knife into the ground and not hit your foot? And things like that. Where did that sort of come from? And how do you practice with that without knowing that you're going to fail?
I do fail sometimes, but not everything. Like, really, but you can train with wood, or you can train with other things. Like, and it's. I build everything very slowly. I mean, everything I perform in this performance, I do it since really long time, and most of the material that is present, it came out of boredness, I think, or like free time, or when I don't have anything to do and there is no Wi-Fi, and yeah, that's my other point. Yeah, get bored and do things.
So I'm just curious, how many times did you injure yourself while trying stuff like that? Approximately, I mean.
I don't know.
Don't do it now. Don't do it now. But this is your genes trying to,
Finger, like cuts in the finger many times. But not so many. Like mousetraps sometimes, a bit painful. But in this performance, it is also about the effect. I mean, I did it like 20, 30 times. I never got badly injured. I know that it's the effect that I want to show. It's not, I don't want to almost die every time I try it. And so that's not extremely dangerous, but it's more like in my training that I get hurt normally. Like I do parkour, free running things, and so.
And have you ever thought about faking it? I mean, faking to be drunk. I mean, and do you think that it would be different for the audience?
Actually, I had to do it a few times without real alcohol, just for logistical reasons. Like, you know, I have to drive after or thing like this. And so I think it's not very different, because actually I'm more drunk after the show than during the show. And so, yeah, of course. I mean, it could be. I think it's more fun for me after we party, and I kind of enjoy whiskey anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's not the most important point for me, but we understand the question, sure.
Okay. And do you have a question for us?
Yeah, sure. Because I'm thinking, if someone, because my question is not, I'm more interested if someone has to say something than my question. So,
yeah.
After I say it.
Hi. So, talking about the the importance of learning things from pain or from accidents or doing something dangerous. So at the moment, the piece is kind of, you know, you're not hurting yourself, but there's the potential for it to happen, but then there's also the fact that you're skilled at what you're doing, so that you're kind of, you know, in the middle. Have you ever thought about or toyed with the idea of going over that and maybe causing yourself pain on the stage, and kind of through these things, or how would, if something were to go wrong on stage, or if you were to cause yourself harm on stage, then how does that sit within your kind of the framework of your work, and is that kind of like totally not allowed, or is that part of it? The potential for that is kind of considered, or are you against that because you don't want to cause pain for people's entertainment, or like how does that side of the kind of spectrum sit with you in kind of the show and the context of performing things that are dangerous?
Yeah, I thought about it. For me, there is really two different way of being injured. There is the pain, just the physical pain, like cuts and bruises. Those ones, I would be totally okay to put myself at risk and have those kinds of injuries, but also like real ligaments, bones, and things like this. I really need them. I want to move until I'm the older I can. I really want to continue. So I don't want to. And also for the audience, I think I don't want to be too violent with the audience. So if I can find a way, I don't know. I'm not against. I didn't really answer to your questions, but yeah, I'm really not against it. But I didn't find a way.
So if they saw you stab yourself, you would be okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi. I wondered if you looked back at your work, if you thought about this sort of timing and changing it sort of next time. You know, what are your feelings about it, and how do you judge what other people think about it? You know, do you sort of imagine what we're thinking as you perhaps sort of edit it sort of next time? Does that make sense?
Almost.
So I'm thinking, I'm an editor, so I'm kind of thinking, how do you decide it's paced right? Has the actual right bits in it? So presumably you'd have to watch your work back,
yeah,
think about it, sort of look at it. So I'm just wondering about that process of sort of viewing it back, thinking about how it's gone, and how you might sort of tweak it in the future.
Yeah, it's a good question. somehow I'm happy about what comes out in the audience when I talk about it normally, and so I didn't challenge very much this so far. I kind of, because it's also a piece just based on actions, and so I want to keep it that way, and so I don't really know. Yeah, I didn't do that work. I'm thinking about it, but when I start thinking, I think, oh, that's very complicated. So I don't do it fully, but I know it's something I should do. And yeah, I don't know. Did I answer a bit? Not really.
You did a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so this was Take Care of Yourself. Mark. Oh,
Thank you very much.
Sterhoff.
So, not to her. Tsuna. So the next show was Tsunami of Julien Grosvalet.
Oui.
Yeah,
Grosvalet.
oui, muy bien, from France. So can you talk about your piece and if there is a long version,
Yes,
how
yeah,
how
okay.
it is?
So, do you hear me? Yes. Okay. So first, first I wanted to make a performance about a personal disaster that I identify as a personal tsunami, and then I figure out myself that it was not interesting at all to put my own problem on stage or each one problem on stage. The challenge was how to change it to turn it in a universal way. So I start to focus myself on a real tsunami, a natural disaster. And I wanted to make a parallel between personal disaster and natural ones. So I start to my research in 2015. At the same time, the immigrants. At the same thing that immigrants arrived by boat, you know what happened, and it was the same images because I find photos from tsunami, and these photos was the same actually, but one was a natural disaster, and the other one was a humanity horrible disaster, you know. And I make first a short version, experimental version, and solo version by myself, and that it was a work in progress because I wanted to do for 5 people, and this was another challenge: how to share my intimacy with them, intimacy with universal world, everybody, you know, something like that. And actually, yesterday you see the first part of the show. You see like 25 minutes, and it's a 50-minute show. You missed, yesterday you saw them from the disaster till they rebuilt themselves as individuals. But then, in the second part, they are building something together as a new society or as a new community, something like that. Yeah, we cut it in half.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question. I've read the synopsis, and maybe it's lies, just like before. But I was really interested in this, let's say, formal and technical aspects. You write that the only thing that the dancers know is that something will happen at a given moment.
This is for the second part that you didn't
see. That's tricky. That's a tricky one, because it felt like it was quite precisely constructed, like every single movement of it. And I was wondering if there's some sort of impro in it.
We had a lot of No, in the process we have a lot of things. Yeah, the first part you see, it's really, really precise, really, really writing. And the second one is space, time, and body qualities. But they move as, I mean, in this quality, they do whatever they want as movements. And then what you said, in the last part, when they rebuild this kind of society, community, they have like, they switch between improvisation and something precise. So I have a writing lines, writing score, and they do like improvising on score, but the score, it's switched one by one, and the one with the key, the one with the score is a key for the other one to say, okay, we're going to pass the other way, the other, I don't know, the other...
Yeah.
The next step.
And what's more stressful, guys? The fixed part or the hybrid part of it?
I mean, it's not stress. I mean, everything's stressful, no? When you do a piece.
Everything,
you know,
okay.
That's why. You have like challenges and you have to do stuff, no? So, I mean, what was the most difficult, I think, for us, in a way, it was to embody the score, you know, because at one point, knowing a score, like knowing a partition or knowing something, like for example, you play piano or you play guitar, you know your score, and then you just do it, but then you have to interpret it, you know. And that, I think, that was a bit also hard to just dig into sensations and to just dig into stories that you just have to create all together, but at the same time, it's individualities that creates like a red thread, if you want. And I won't say that it's stressful, actually. I would just say that it's as you say, like challenging. And what's also nice, I have to say, it's that it's kind of an everyday process, and it creates all the time something new. So you won't see the same all the time, you know. Though we have 3 shows in a row, you come on Monday, on Tuesday it's not going to be the same, you know. We're maybe going to create the same red line or red thread, but then within that you won't see actually the same, you know. And that's this subjective aspect, which is, I have to say, super interesting also for us, no?
Yeah. I think sometimes it can also be relieving to have some freedom on stage and to be able to create your own scores, your own choreographies and stuff.
And I have to say, it's like it's kind of a relief in a way, but it's also it pushes boundaries, you know, in a way. And I have to say, like, and these boundaries are part of the project too, you know, because tsunami, refugees, migrants, and all of that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So, any comments? Yeah.
Okay. I think my question is about aesthetics, because the piece had a very, very strong, clean and clear aesthetic. And my own experience of my own personal tsunamis and the tsunamis that you mentioned as part of your research and development are anything but aesthetically beautiful. And I just wondered how you reconcile your relationship to both the personal and the kind of political, social dynamics of the subject matter in such a kind of clean way, because I think there's a danger of aestheticizing poverty, of aestheticizing danger or disaster in a way that it removes something about the specificity of those things in the world in a way which, for me, I think it may be a little problematical.
So, I don't know if I understand everything, but I will try to... Très esthétique. Et pourquoi, oui. But that's why, that's the point. If it's so attendu. It's so, when you see tsunami as a title, it's so expected for an audience that it will be a big mess, black, brown shit everywhere on stage. No, maybe. And I was not to, I don't want it to do like a representation of a tsunami. It's something more like subtle, and it was not, it was something, it was more about feelings. And the aesthetic come from, I don't know, maybe, I don't know from where it comes, this aesthetic. Une autre lecture, yeah. Ouais. Yes, this is my own point of view of my own tsunami, but I wanted to make something clear for everybody can have his own lecture about it. Not to put some mess and lost people inside, a lost audience inside a big mess. I just wanted to make something clear and pure that anybody can have his own lecture about it. Because we call it tsunami, but it's not narrative at all for us. It's not an history about how it happened, what occurred during a tsunami. It's not this. It's concept. Yes. No. Yeah. Why? This is not.
There's no need to do that.
No.
So therefore, your choice of aesthetics and the choreographic language you then choose has to negotiate itself somewhere else between the complexity of the individual dynamic and reconnecting into something a bit bigger. And I could see that happening. Maybe it gets resolved more fully in the larger piece of work, which
and maybe
you're referencing.
Yes, of course. And it's maybe also with this second part you haven't seen yesterday, it will be more clearer. Because actually, I told yet that they reconcile themselves and then they try to find a resilience inside of a group. So that's it.
Some other thoughts or comments?
I just rebound on what you said, you know? I was just like thinking that, don't you think that when you give just something like, for example, a painting that represents, I don't know, the sea and a river, the river and the forest and something. You see the forest, which is green. You put an image that everybody will look at as the author will want you to see it, you know, in a way. And I don't think that it's, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that you say that. And we were just speaking about that on the sofa actually just before, saying that I don't think that it wasn't really the point for us. Also for Julien, he really brought us into a process which was I'm giving you that, guys, but in as you said also before, in the sense that you will make your own story about it, you know, and that was also, I think, a super important point for him to bring a not subjective but individual aspect in a way, like.
As they have some kind of liberty, freedom inside, I want to give freedom to the audience to. I don't want to focus the audience in one point. I just want to open the possibilities about feelings and lectures of the audience.
For me, I was a little bit detached in the early stages, and there was a lot of crawling around, and that for me it went on too long. And then there was a point when you all emerged and started to come out, and then at the last 5 minutes was very moving, and I understood it, and I was emotionally with you. And so I suppose my question was that, is it okay if I then go back and understand what you're doing at the beginning and have an emotional response to that later? I don't know.
Of course.
That's a very beautiful question, actually.
Of course. Of course, because for example, in the flashlight parts, flashlight session, you see all the techno within the techno music. You see some des éclats, not des éclats, explosions. You see when it comes like lights, you see like non des morceaux, pieces, little pieces about what will happen, will occur afterwards in the second parts. It's like we do it like the other way around, and then we rebuild ourselves. You see, it's like you have this little.
I think she was.
What you were saying, you were saying. So I translated that. Sorry, that's so I translate that you reconnected with the piece in the last 5 minutes, and that made you reconnect with the beginning of the piece or something like that, no?
But it's not a matter of recognizing something, but of understanding, you know, emotionally the piece.
Yeah.
But in the very last part of it, and going backward to understand what happened earlier. That's the meaning, right?
And your question was if that was okay, or yeah, of course. yeah, of course.
So yeah, that was okay.
It's
Cool.
totally okay. It's totally okay.
As I say, you are free as an audience to see what you not what you want to see, but what you can receive as an audience. So everything is okay.
Was there some sort of failure of communication at the beginning or not? Because it was resolved later, was there something wrong at the beginning? Do you know what I mean?
No, actually, in this piece, you as an audience can connect as you want to.
Yeah.
It's like when you look at a Pollock,
Yeah.
and the Pollock doesn't tell you what you have to see.
Yeah.
It's your own interpretation of what you see. So people can connect at the beginning,
Yeah.
in the middle, in the end, during
Yeah.
all the piece, never connect. You know, like it's also an option. You know.
Can I just add to that? So I had the same feeling. I didn't understand the actual start either, and it's made sense later. So I think we're saying, should you rethink the actual structure of your piece? And if audiences aren't quite understanding it till later, is there something structurally wrong with it?
Non, ils disent que si le gens il connecte avec la pièce à la fin, si tu devrais repenser à la structure de la pièce pour qu'ils puissent connecter de départ.
But I think we.
Non, mais ils disent des connexions.
The connection.
De-
Me, with this beginning you saw yesterday, I wanted to, because when we start to work, it was right after the 15th of November, le 15 novembre, c'est ça? Non, mais attends, c'est important. Hein? It was right after the 15th of November, what happened in Paris with the bomb. A friend of mine was there, so. Yeah, but she's okay, huh? I mean, physically okay. And I say, okay, a tsunami could also be a terrorist attack. So we wanted to start with a shock, with a, you see, audience is like this. So we wanted to connect or disconnect from the beginning to make the chaos on stage. They are not in chaos. The chaos comes from the music and the lights. And they are quite, okay, quite quiet. They are quiet in what they do. They show you a part of the body. Maybe it's cut, you don't know, that's it. But I don't know if I answer. But we just wanted to disconnect people from the reality. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then it takes some time to reconnect, maybe. Okay.
Okay, guys. I can't let you make your question to the audience because it's too late, but you will have the chance during the afternoon or during tonight when we are all drunk and it's going to work just as fine. So, round of applause, Tsunami, Julien Rosvalet. Next show of the night, and it's We've got each other. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Perfect.
By Paul O'Donnell. Please just talk about your piece from the UK, of course.
Okay, so maybe I should start from the beginning. So it started as a performance called Beautiful, and at that point it was just a concept, and the concept was for me to try and make a performance that could be described as beautiful without anything to actually look at, and that was sort of the starting point of the process. And then sort of accidentally it became a Bon Jovi musical, which of course, but it's somewhere in the process, I think I was, in the initial piece, Beautiful, I was creating a contemporary dance routine that was imagined, and that was the initial idea. And I was just looking for tracks to accompany that, and a trombone version of Living on a Prayer came up on YouTube, and I listened to it, and that's the overture of the show as it is now, and it all sort of transpired from there. So it was all sort of completely accidental that it became the show that it is today, but sometimes accidents happen and they're good. So it's developed now into a full hour piece. So this was a sort of condensed version in which I tried to create the sense of the full show, but in half the space. So there's a lot more in the hour-long show. There's a lot more of the sort of more vulnerable moments of Paul. So there's an interval section that is a staged interval. So everything goes black in the whole auditorium, and I'm talking into the microphone, describing the interval experience, whilst also commenting on how we think about ourselves in those times. And that's when I start sort of critiquing myself almost, and sort of exposing a bit more of my vulnerabilities in that. What else can I say?
I mean, were the music composed for the show, the different version of Living on a Prayer?
No, they were all found tracks.
Really?
So, yeah, so that was part of, I'd spent like so many days on YouTube and things like that, just searching for these tracks. But actually they became like really exciting stimuli for the piece. Like I think if I did it the other way and I got somebody to compose different versions of Living on a Prayer, it would have been so much harder for me to try and shape the material, because I'd be thinking of the material and then shaping the music around that. Whereas this way I had the music and it has a particular feel to it and a particular tone to it, and then I could build a scene in time with that piece of music. And I just found that a much easier way of working with the tracks. And so it came from like an idea, like I knew there was going to be a gang warfare style scene, and then I went through YouTube and kept searching and found loads and loads of tracks that potentially suited that. But then the one that I've chose is the one that felt like it was the right one for that moment. And the peaks and troughs in the piece of music are where the punchlines come in, and they work together in that way.
Cool. So the first question for us is, I mean, we would never really want to see the actual musical. I guess I don't know you guys, but I mean the musical would be, I guess, I don't know. Anyway, the thing is
awful.
Yeah, I didn't say that. What's the role of imagination for you and for the way you create your pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I think imagination is important in all of my pieces, but this is perhaps the most extreme version of that. And I think it's mainly because it gives power to the audience, and I really like that, particularly in this show. That's what I enjoy most as a performer, is the fact that I only really own 50% of the show, and the audience own the other 50%. And the fact that hopefully anyway, the audience feel just as invested in the show as I do, because they're making it happen. It's not just me that's making it happen. I'm sort of laying out the framework, and it's up to the audience to try and bring that to life. And that's what really excited me about this project, as I sort of had been developing it.
I was wondering if you consider this as a research field, like not just one show research, but many different possible ways to work on this kind of emptiness that goes into imagination. Because you were working on something that we all know, like the musical, but you were actually God in that situation. I mean, you could actually made us see whatever you wanted us to see. Like, so you could create the most crazy and unbelievable show, just making us imagine it, right? So I was wondering if you're going to develop this kind of research as a vast field, or is it just one piece?
I mean, like I say, I think it is present in all of my performances. So. I did a performance before where I was a cowboy, and in that I was creating it was in sort of like a bar setting, and I was creating a saloon out of a bar, and the audience had cowboy hats on, so they were pretending they were cowboys and cowgirls in the bar. So there's that pretense is in all of my shows, in a very different way to this show, I think, but it's still always there, this pretense, because I try to invite the audience into being a part of the show rather than just sitting back and watching me do the show. They invest in it in some way by pretending along with me in a theatrical way.
Okay. Comments, questions, thoughts, and other synonyms that I don't actually know in English.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sort of partly picking up on your kind of comment as well. But I think one of the interesting things for me about the piece, and I saw it at ACT in Bilbao, it was about 6 weeks ago. So it was really nice to see it again in a very different way with a very different audience. Was the fact that it is using a very popular genre that thousands and thousands of people really engage with and really enjoy for lots of very different reasons. It's nice to see a piece of work that's utilizing aspects of popular culture in a way that is somehow subverting that in the nicest possible way. Because I would say that maybe some of the things that Tom's doing, and I think some of the things that you're doing, come from a tradition of populist culture that is reframed and reconfigured, which can be powerful for new audiences, but also for existing audiences, maybe like us, and it may be a huge assumption that we all see a lot of contemporary art a lot of the time, and actually it's quite boring. A lot of it is actually very poor and it's very dull. So actually seeing something that actually is working a different vein for a different reason, I think for me was very interesting.
Thank you.
No, that's... Comments are allowed. And the awkward silence is gone. Of course, Marco.
Well, I liked a lot the performance. It made me think about something. Anyway, and
that's good.
And the thing I was wondering is, of course, the process of destructurating a dispositive, and so reframing it, of course, is a subversion of the dispositive itself. So I was wondering if you also made a reflection of the musical is the expression of a certain political and economic world, and a vision of the world, of course, is a special kind of entertainment. So, okay, sorry. So the fact of destructurating a form of art that is the expression of a certain specific economic and political view of the world, there is a will of subverting it, or is it just for you a style exercise?
Could you rephrase the question?
I mean, there is in you the will of reframing it because you want to criticize it, and so why and in what layers? Or you're doing this destructuration of a musical, how you could do any other destructuration process just as a style exercise?
Yeah, well, so I think musical is the choice I went with because I like musicals. So I went with musicals, and I'm not sure if I'm trying to subvert it really, as in simultaneously celebrate it and criticize it / ridicule it all at the same time in a very British humour sort of way. But trying to, because I go and watch musicals and I love watching musicals, but I know they're utterly stupid. Like that that is my experience of musicals. And so when and I've really tried to use that to bring it back to myself and my own sort of vulnerabilities as well, particularly in the longer piece, is using that sense of a musical which is about community and is about everything being wonderful when people come together, and using those sort of general tropes of musical theatre to try and celebrate what we have in the room and what we have between us. So it sort of was coming out of the musical that these sort of messages came forward, and We've Got Each Other became We've Got Each Other. So it was using the musical as another sort of stimulus for what the piece was trying to say, I guess.
No, I was already there. Your question for the audience, if you have one, like something you need to share or ask.
So I guess to audiences that are not UK based, obviously, so I'm trying to do the show more internationally a little bit. And obviously the show you saw here is at a UK venue, speaking to a predominantly UK audience. But what things perhaps weren't clear for you or weren't recognizable to your experience of musical theatre that if I was coming to your country, you would suggest that I edit or change slightly. So not particularly things like Les Dennis, because when I go to your countries, I would find a celebrity that is like your version of Les Dennis, who I know a lot of you don't know. But I would find a replacement for that. But it's more sort of, I guess, structural things. Like somebody was saying in Spain, you don't have ice cream in the interval, like little things like that. Insane, because that's what everybody does in England, just has ice cream, and that's like a sort of functional part in the performance, in the full performance. So it's things like that which are present in the show but perhaps not recognizable to your countries that would be interesting to find out and consider.
Well, I'd love to see an Italian version with you taking fun of our Italian accent. That would be lovely. And I didn't know the John Bon Jovi song, so it was quite shocking, like when everybody was singing. And I was like, what is happening? Surrounded by crazy people singing something completely unknown for me. So if you come to Italy, just ask us for the right song to make everybody sing. Right. But so, I don't know. Yeah, it's just me. Then it's just me. And it's just me.
I don't know the words. I know the song.
Yeah, that's right.
Very quickly, I think, because I don't know, I know very little about UK, and what I really liked, I'm Swiss, yeah. I think if you tour, what we like is that you're very British. So I think it would be also mistake maybe to try to enter too much in the other culture, because what makes your show what it is that it is very British.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think it's
that's really useful.
Yeah.
Thanks. And makes it easier.
That's very useful because you don't have to do anything actually. Yeah.
I'm just going to stay the same.
Round of applause. We got each other, Paul O'Donnell. So let's skip to the morning shows. This will be tricky because Miguel is running away. Because my colleagues didn't have the chance to see the shows because they were rehearsing, and I didn't have the time to prepare any questions. So I'll start just asking you to present your piece and to talk about it. And then I hope that anybody here will come out with an answer. The show is Sisyphus by New Perspectives UK.
Yes, okay. So I'm Jack, and I'm the director in a loose sense with this project, but I'm the artistic director of New Perspectives, who produced this show. Giuseppe is a composer and musician who I've worked with for a long, long time, based in Sicily, who I brought over especially for it, and Thibault is from Belgium. As those of you who saw the show today know, a performer and painter. And our history with this piece of work is we brought these two artists over to Nottingham, where my company's based, Nottingham in the UK, and we just started in a very basic elemental way with some of the elements that you saw this morning, a block of wood, a rock, and we had a philosophical center, I suppose, which was the myth of Sisyphus, and we worked very practically and in a very kind of concentrated way for a long time, and there was a lot of discussion. It's not the kind of show that you can run over and over and over again. It's very tiring for Thibault and for all of us in a way. So we also, because there's an element of improvisation in the show, we try and keep that fresh. So I think we hold back from over-rehearsing. But it had its premiere at an art gallery in Nottingham last year, and then we had the invitation to come here, and we adjusted it slightly, but it's similar, I suppose, to the last version. Today was 30 minutes and last year's version was 45, so on your question about length, I think there is a longer version of this that we've slightly curtailed. But we've also had conversations about whether or not we look at three different sections that in a way are three different performances using similar materials but different configurations. It's an idea. You guys want to say anything? No, they're happy.
That's enough. So if anybody has something some comments or questions, otherwise I'm gonna just make one out right now. Okay, I'll break the ice once again. I was thinking about that there's this reference to the myth of Sisyphus, and I more or less remember something about Albert Camus talking about a happy Sisyphus, which is very interesting for me because I don't quite agree, but I understand that the aim of the thought, like someone who has to make the same failure over and over and has to find the strength to be happy and to be alive no matter what. So I was just wondering if there's something about it behind your piece, if you thought about it and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I'll pass on to Thibault in a moment, but one thing I'd say about that, for those of you who saw the show, obviously it wasn't only about achieving balance with the objects. Whenever Thibault achieved some degree of balance, his character was such that he always wanted to push the balance and add to it. And so his failure was not just the result of stoically trying to find balance, but was also the desire to keep on pushing and keep on challenging himself. But I'll pass that on maybe to you. Do you want to say something?
Peut-être qu'on a un peu dévié du mythe de Sisyphe vu par Camus. Oui.
We deviated a bit from the myth of Sisyphus as Camus saw it.
Parce que, effectivement, il y a une répétition chez eux, dans le mythe de Sisyphe. Mais ici, dans la performance, nous avons décidé que cette répétition devait quand même laisser une trace qui, comment dire.
So he says that effectively the myth of Sisyphus has repetition, but they were thinking that they had to add something to repetition by just adding layers to it.
En fait, on n'est jamais dans une pure répétition. Et la peinture permet de laisser une trace différente de cette...
So the painting leaves another layer to the repetition.
Pour ne pas tomber dans un cycle. Voilà, c'est ça. En fait, l'effondrement des structures et des tentatives de construction que je fais.
The fall of the structure and the attempts to build something.
Le personnage que j'incarne essaye de retenir les structures avant qu'elles ne s'effondrent à nouveau.
He tries to, did I get this right? He tries to rebuild the structures to do it again once more time.
De retenir donc.
The keep the structures, yeah.
Et donc, dans le flot continu du chaos, la peinture est là pour laisser une trace.
In the continuous flow of chaos, the painting is there to leave a trace, to leave something remaining to that chaos and repetition.
Et donc c'est dans cet ordre-là que le personnage peut être heureux quand même malgré le chaos.
So it is within that thought that the character can remain happy despite the chaos.
Thanks a lot. Questions, comments, or?
I wanted to know, first of all, I found the presence of Thibaut and the music amazing, really, and the set is amazing as well. But the only thing that kept me a little bit out was that I tried to understand if there was an evolution from the first actions to the last structure, or if there were random actions with objects, knowing that the last icon would be the last one. Do you understand what I mean? I didn't find a relation from the last icon that was made from the first, let's say, experiment with the first elements.
Yeah, in a certain sense, the structure is pretty simple. We are building a crescendo, so it's a very simple climatic structure. We get to a certain point and we want to reach a certain point of intensity through this process of repetition. The fact you were mentioning, if I got it right, in the longer version, the element of painting adds this extra layer that Thibaut was mentioning. And this trace he was speaking about is what does the trick in the respect I think you were pointing at. I'm not entirely sure if I got it right. But yeah, I don't know if...
It was out of interest. Was there not an evolution in as much as it began with a rock on the floor and a gentle balancing of the rock on a plank, and then there was an upward movement of everything was becoming more ambitious and was trying to balance off each other. So he was using the elements there. In sort of failing on the smaller level, he kept bringing more materials on in a way to help with that. But I guess for us on an evolutionary level, it began with the rock and it ended with a standing structure.
Yeah, and you never know, I think, and that's probably pretty common to the classical Greek world. You don't know the limits in advance, you know. You can commit hubris, you know, trespassing the limit, but you don't know it in advance, like in the Christian way of thinking, for example. You know what's wrong since the very beginning. In there, you're pushing the structure, and you don't know exactly what happens till what time the structure will be still there, standing, or if you've gone beyond the limit. Yeah.
Par rapport à ce que José vient d'ajouter, de dire, je voudrais ajouter que, effectivement, pousser chaque fois la limite un peu plus loin, faire l'expérience de la limite, c'est se condamner aussi à toujours échouer.
So pushing the limit every time is also condemning the character to fail every time.
Mais on n'a pas le choix, on n'a pas le choix. Ou bien c'est une question quasiment éthique, ou bien on reste dans une position attentiste, ou bien alors on expérimente le monde, et en l'occurrence les matériaux, et on va vers l'échec.
So it's almost an ethical position of life, is I decide to push and go towards failure, knowing that, but that's the only way of moving forward. I didn't explain it literally, but you speak in a very poetic way, so it's difficult to translate it.
It's for what I need you.
Yeah.
Because you're not very poetic, are you, Miguel?
I'm not very poetic, I'm very pragmatic.
So time is running out. Oh my God, it's the three of you guys. Fight against each other.
Obviously, the performance itself is physically challenging for you. I'm wondering if you were in character, being a character who found it physically demanding.
Ah, quelqu'un m'a dit tout à l'heure qu'on voyait la sueur sur mon visage.
Someone told me that they were seeing me sweating.
Et je crois que c'est une marque pour dire que c'était difficile.
And I think that's a mark to say that it was difficult to do.
Mais ce qui est difficile n'est pas forcément désagréable.
But what is difficult is not necessarily uncomfortable.
Were you being somebody else?
Est-ce que tu étais un personnage?
On stage, I am always a person. Pardon. Sur la scène, je suis toujours un personnage.
On stage, you're always a character.
Yeah, about what you said before, that in the original Sisyphus, there is no, like, Sisyphus never throws the stone back on purpose. And in this performance, it happened. But what kept on, that element made me keep the attention during the whole performance, not knowing if he was doing it on purpose or not. So this ambiguity, I don't know if it's a choice or if it's left to circumstance, or how much is the choice between pulling it back and...
That's a good question. I don't think there's any moment where he knocks the structure over on purpose. But as I said before, he pushes it to an extent where the risk becomes greater and greater. And that's maybe where there's a slight change from the myth. The image with the myth is someone just trying to do a good day's work, but it keeps rolling down. Whereas our interpretation of that, I suppose, is that he's creating to some extent his own challenge, and he's compelled to push that challenge, if you see what I mean. So I think in the course of the performance, most of the failures that you saw happened naturally. You get them to that point, but you didn't deliberately push things. So the attitude is different. Did I not understand?
Sometimes he would like to avoid it falling, but sometimes when he sees it falling, he doesn't react to it falling. That's what I found interesting. Like, why sometimes?
But I mean, I'll pass to him. But I suppose because the piece is about that type of failure and it's so repeated, I guess on some level it maybe reflects the way we do respond to drama, tragedy. It's not always the same. Sometimes we try and stop it, sometimes we're stunned by it. And I think that captures that.
You want to say something, Thibaut?
Oui, je pense qu'on ne peut pas toujours se battre contre les choses. Je pense que parfois il faut laisser faire et recommencer.
We can't always fight against what's happening. Sometimes we have to just let go and start from scratch.
I need to learn that. I just want to say you very thank you because you have a for me it was a un temps suspendu.
Suspended time en français.
Pour moi c'était un temps suspendu.
For me, it was a suspended time.
C'est matériel si simple avec
with
rien,
those simple materials,
les
only
matériaux
you
instead,
and the material.
mais qui ouvre un monde énorme de
But only those two elements open a world of possibilities. Thank you.
Round of applause. Finally, the very last piece of the day is guide before the prizes that we are going to give you guys and the early ideas, right? Woo! Guided tour inside a dance performance, number 24, right?
Right.
By Vladimir Tsekov, Spain. Guys, we know each other. You can just
Yeah.
talk and say
Okay.
whatever you want, man.
Okay. Yes. So I mean, as it said in the title, it's the 24th show of the company, but it's our first dance show, and the idea was to ask the questions we are asking in any of our shows and try to put them inside the dance gender. What happens? We are interested in how can we fight reality through the stage. I mean, not imitate reality, not reform reality, not even make a revolution to reality, but fight it. And yeah, I mean, in one moment I thought dance was a way of communicating through abstraction without going to logic, logos, and thoughts. And then I began studying dance. And then I realized at some point that, I realized sadly that dance was used to make like psychological, I don't know, yeah, research, or like even worse, like narrative structures, or like, you know, like just to defend reality, to go on beyond, to say the world we are living is nice and we should like enjoy that and stylize that, and even if we think it's bad, we should just stylize. I don't know if the pronunciation, stylize it a little bit, and it will become better just because of that stylization. And that was what I was trying to do in this like dance show, how it goes, and even like I try to be radical in all the things I think, like radical going to the back point. And I think that's something and I usually don't find in dance performances or dance festivals, and I find quite bourgeois. Like, we don't ask ourselves, is there any sense in going on doing dance performances? Like, you know what I mean? Is dance, just defending the system we are living in, the reality we are, is just an stylization of reality, but it's the same representation, or it can be used in another way and that's the point. And also, that's one of the points, like in the like basic like motivation, but and what has to do with the rest of the works that we have here and around, and also the fact that I was very angry with dancers and choreographers and all that, and myself as dancer was like, I found myself getting bored watching dance performances lots of times. Even me being a dancer, I was getting bored, and I was trying to also to make a show that was not boring, which I think is a lot for a dance performance, for normal audiences. I mean, not for dancers, and I think that's the point, more or less. I hope I explain myself.
you basically already put the question, like, is there any sense in going on with contemporary dance?
It can be a question. It can be a question or not, but it can be. I think it's a good question.
I know.
You know, like I mean, like.
I do agree. Is there any comments or? I mean, we got lots of dancers here, so I'm not answering.
I haven't seen the piece. I just slept this morning because I was really tired. But I will answer to what you just said. So, what will make something not boring?
Yeah. What? Sorry.
What will make something not boring to see?
What made me feel bored in that?
No, you just said that. So you were trying to do something which could be not boring for
Yes.
the audience and for yourself too, I guess.
Yes.
So what would make it not boring?
What would be not? I mean.
Oh, what's boring? What?
I don't know if I understand.
¿Qué es aburrido para ti o qué es lo que no
Okay.
aburrido?
Sí, sí. I mean, I think one of the most boring and things I found in dance performances is like when I see people like dancing perfectly, like great dancers, you know, and a great research of movement, but that takes not into account the audience. Like in the sense that they are researching and as they are like enjoying themselves and working for enjoy themselves. I mean, I've been taught to dance in that sense sometimes in the conservatoire. You know, like
We too.
Find your way, find your sense, enjoy the thing, and I'm just questioning that. I mean, it's a matter of pleasure of the performance. Dance is a matter of that. You know what I mean? I find it boring, for example, when I see someone like enjoying a lot, and yeah, I think that can resume most of lots of things.
I just continue just a tiny bit. I agree also in the sense that there's this fourth wall, you know, that is super present in dance shows where we just enjoy ourselves and then there's nothing to compare with being with the audience or something like that, you know. And I agree that we're taught to enjoy ourselves. But I also have to say that on one hand, I'm saying what I just said, but on the other hand, it's also nice to see someone enjoying, no? Sometimes. When it's your friend or your mom, for example, which is just dancing on a nice track, you know, you're just like, come on, that's something, you know, and just enjoying too, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think it's nice, but it maintains reality as it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I find
agree.
it like it's nice, but we go and we see it's nice, and it's.
I mean, you're talking also about showing off, no?
Yeah.
About like being show off, you know? You understand? Like being. I mean, I'm gonna show you my skills, you know. I'm just here.
Yeah,
to
that's
enjoy
another
life.
thing. That's another thing. But it's not exactly the same what I'm talking about. But that's I may include that showing off inside the other one of taking place of myself, like doing my research in movement. You know, so or also like being some kind of elitist movement.
Utopical.
You know, I don't know. When I was studying in Granada in my conservatoire, there was like some dance performances coming to the theater there. And all the people watching them were the people from the dance conservatoire, teachers, students, the friends of them, and all those. And I was wondering, like, why is this for? It's just for us? Are we dancing for us? Taking shows to this theater for us?
Right.
Taking public money for us? You know what I mean? All this.
Like selected audience, you know? A bit.
Yeah.
And, well, I'm saying all of that, but I agree with what you said, huh? It's just, I just wanted
course.
to... Okay?
Hi. Really great piece of work. Really, you know, that was really perfectly balanced. As someone who, you know, I really like dance, but as an outsider, I don't really understand it. I think dancers, they understand so much meaning without realizing that there are really lots of audiences like me who only half understand it. So you're right that I think, you know, the extra pace, you know, it's really helped me. So it's a really great piece.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I find very interesting this question because I've also experienced the same feeling sometimes, and I enjoyed the idea of the question. Basically, my comment is about how make those questions and that desire of reaching the audience more real. somehow, well, I don't know if it's that in the intention, but it's almost like it's the concept of a question, but it's not a real question. I don't feel truly asked the question as if there was some sort of preconceived idea of what I might think. And I would like to be part of the question fully.
Yeah, I mean, in one hand, I never want to fully ask questions. You know what I mean? Like I prefer middle down things because I think they are more ambiguous and more interesting all the time. And in the other hand, like to be, like I don't know, like how to make you like more question, like you know, like to be in. I don't know. I mean, it's just a matter of watching that like more closely. I guess. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other? Paul, over there.
I just wanted to say I really, really liked it. So I've got a background in programming, but I come from a drama background into that programming. So then when I worked in venues that were mixed disciplines, I came to contemporary dance with exactly those questions and that naivety that are addressed in this. And then as a marketeer or working in other venues trying to attract, those concerns are again, and that's interesting what you said about the conservatoire and who are we playing to and who are the audiences for. I just found it really, really interesting and I really liked it. I wondered, the voice and the questions, the voiceover, I was listening to the words and I wondered what happens if perhaps there is more condescension or a little more sarcasm perhaps, because I think the words, the script lends itself to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's the. I mean, I think that's the key thing in the show, like to work, and of course, every show has to. I mean, it can be always review, you know, and work on again, and of course, that's the. I mean, that's the problem I was fighting with all the time while writing the text, like which level of sarcasm or condescendency. Of course, I don't want condescendency, you know, like in the text. I've tried to avoid that. So if it's there, I mean, it's I will like thank a lot, like where, if you tell me where exactly, so I can take it out. But of course, like that's the, you know what I mean? Like there is always, like as you said before, like with the like if I was thinking before was the conception people has about it's impossible to not have a misconception as from was to have a preconception, sorry, of what. The people in front are gonna think. So it's like, yeah, it's the part of the show that can be worked on. I think a lot.
Every time I heard a line, I heard a subtext that was, I know the answer to this question, but you probably don't.
Yeah.
Which is one.
Yeah.
I think you could possibly push that conversation.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
I think it's time for your question towards the audience, if you have one. We didn't tell you earlier, so you're not prepared for that, and that's, you did, so you knew, so you have to have your question. Otherwise, if there are any other comments.
No, I mean, no, not really. So if there's
not really
wanting to say anything, it's fine. We think it's better, like people.
Referring to what you say about dance and bornness and all this, depends also what you consider dance, you know? Because, for example, what he did, it's totally dance for me.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And, you know, and it says a lot with a very simple, with simplicity, opens a bunch of possibilities. So what I think is that when we use the body, we don't close the meaning of what we are saying, because it can be interpreted in as many ways as people are, you know. So that is what I think it's very interesting in dance and in the use of the body. Then it's up to us how we use it, and if we make of it something boring or not, or if we make of it also something very literal or not. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with you. You know that's the
thing.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with you when you say like I didn't see his show because we were like warming up, but I really agree that the interesting thing is to think what is dance. You know what I mean? Like, what is dance? That's what I mean. The dance should talk about itself. You know what I mean? Like, it's enough topic, dance itself. So I think that's one of the main topics. So, and stage itself, theater should talk about what's theater, of course.
I wanted to ask a thing that related a little bit to what Paul said, and also what's your name? Andrea said, and because I totally agree with them, and there is a connection, I think, and also about this, let's say, thought about what is boring and the dance is boring, is not boring. I think that we should just shift a little bit, not talking about dance or other things, and what is boring, what is not boring. I think there is a problem anyway in certain form of arts. For example, circus has the problem that it's very young, so in dramaturgy they are weak sometimes. Dance is very strong in dramaturgy, but has another problem. Sometimes it's very autoreferential. Sometimes we have a mainstream of autoreferential dance. Also, anti-entertainment, that becomes an entertainment for people who says that they don't want entertainment, so they go to see things that are not entertaining. So it becomes entertainment for people that don't want to be entertained. And so about this question that you asked, they sometimes point the dot on this mechanism of autoreferential dance, and so all the questions of them. But sometimes I had the feeling that Andrea had, that they were nearby the question that I had, but not exactly the one. So the question is did you work with audiences, asking what they said, what they really were wondering? Because I think there are some little mechanism that may be, you know, for example, I give a practical example. You say, are you staring at one dancer more than the others? And is it for, I don't know, because you find him attractive or other things? And it's something that sometimes happens, really. For example, in the Tsunami performance, it was a feeling that I was staring more a dancer or a dancer, a female or male dancer, more because I found them more attractive or beautiful things. But in yours, particularly, it's something that happens usually. So when the question came, I said, yes, that's something that I asked to myself, but not in your performance. Because you had very similar clothes, and you were not really playing on your skills or things. So it was like a good question, but maybe there is something in the stage that it really doesn't make me think that. So I wonder if there is not something to adjust between my experience and what you show in order to make this question more, oh yes, it's exactly what I was wondering. You know what?
Yeah, I don't think if it's that possible to make it in an absolute way, but of course, you know, like, yeah. I mean, that's, no, I don't, I mean, we've asked the audiences we've performed with after performing, you know, what questions were the more accurate ones, or the more they make them think. And this question is one that always, goes, because people like pay attention to that question a lot, like always. But no, we haven't. I mean, it was the thought we had about dance and the people in the company and the people around, you know, and the people like, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Vladimir Tsakov. And thank you for questioning a lot of interesting things. So let's skip to the early ideas section. So let's give the word to Tom and Ayla. So if you'd like to introduce your work a little bit, and then if you have a question for the audience.
Okay. Yeah. Hello. So I think I start with the title is "We Are Not a Couple," and it happened actually because this was the most question we had to answer. Like, are you a couple? And it's funny. We have a lot of friends. They are a couple and work as partner acrobats. So we are not. And it doesn't really matter what you answer, because when you say, no, we are not a couple, then, oh my God, it must be difficult to work so close together if you're not a couple. And when you are, yes, we are a couple, it must be difficult because you see each other all the time. And so, yeah, we found it a funny question when it doesn't matter what you answer. And it gave us a general feeling of that audience is actually interesting what is behind this 5-minute acts you do on stage where you try to make it as perfect as possible. So yeah, we took some ideas from this, like do you need to, like what is success? Because that's why we fall a lot of times on stage without hurting each other. And yeah, so there came different ideas of what people don't see normally in performance and questions we ask ourselves, training or performing or whatever. Anything to add?
Yeah, we have been researching a lot. Ooh, oh. We have
Yeah,
been
that
researching a lot the physical part of
Physical,
the work.
sorry?
The physical part of the work that we are doing, because circus is in many ways very aesthetical, and I think we are still doing very aesthetic things, but we are trying to find some contrast to what it means to do a trick, when something is a trick, when something is a movement, and how the work between each other is important to that.
Yeah. And do you have a special question that you would like to ask the audience about your work?
Yeah, one question that we have, because we are still in the process, and we are curious to know which questions popped up while you were seeing what we were doing, and also if it's important for you to know the answer. If you were missing not to know the answer. Or
So, anyone wants to answer or try to answer to this? Yeah. Thank you.
Occasionally I felt there was a narrative going on there about power when you switched it and were on top of him. I wondered if people felt they wanted more of that, or if it's okay without a narrative.
You look like...
I don't know if that's a question for us or if that's a question for anybody. Well, I think there's in like for us it's a little bit in any situation where you work with two, there's kind of a game going from one to the other. Sometimes for a longer period, one person is initiating and leading, and in our natural duo, it changes all the time. So we wanted to keep this inside of the piece as well. Because it's not necessarily about power. It comes across as power, but it's also about the initiative and the response to that. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think I have to add one thing. It's because we have the same discipline, but really different jobs in our discipline. So I'm the strong guy. She is the girl who does like the handstands, the flying shapes. So, and one topic what we had was if you use power. If you use just physical power, I will probably always win. So it started also, what can she do that I cannot succeed at all my trick, and what can I do that she cannot succeed? So this was one idea we had with how to use power in this piece.
Yeah, so sort of go into your question of needing an answer. Whether we need an answer. For me, I don't need an answer, but perhaps I need just a little bit more of a key to access what you spoke about just now in the piece, because I agree, like I saw power struggles, but I didn't quite know how to create a narrative around that in my head. And I think if it worked perfectly as a 15-minute performance because you were doing some incredible things and you really played with that form really well. But if you're making it as a longer piece, it's how you invite us into it a little bit more to read into it. And I wondered whether you had considered bringing text into it at all, because there was some coming off sort of the power thing, and I really admired their sort of complacent performance style you had, where you were sort of not giving us a big show. You were sort of like a bit unenthusiastic in a really sort of charming way, and casual about your presentation of these big tricks. And I wondered whether bringing some text into that might highlight that a bit more or create more of a narrative around it. Particularly, like I was thinking, when you were literally stood on his face, it'd be great for you to try and continue a conversation while she stood on you. So I just wondered whether text was something you had considered in the creation.
Yes, we considered it like for, I think, 2 days during creation. It's something which it takes, I think, a lot of work. Like, we had the idea to talk during doing tricks, but we also need to breathe. That's a bit the shitty part. And yeah, so we had a quick thought, but not more. So if you have more concrete suggestions, we are happy to hear.
Yeah, I would like to. No, yeah.
Hello. I just wanted to say something. Maybe we don't have to talk about it now. But it's like, as soon as you walk on stage and as soon as you see chalk on your hands, I was like, okay, I know what this is. And then you do the first lifts. And then from that point onwards, for the whole next 15 minutes, I'm just waiting for you to lift him. Like, that for me, that was what that was. It was like, oh, I'm just waiting for that moment to happen. And to kind of set that up, or to kind of set the expectations of that up, and to play with that, and the fact that that's what I wanted to see, and I was waiting for that to happen. And then I'm really glad you did do it in the end. But then I suppose as this piece develops, is how do you hint at that maybe happening, or how do you then do that multiple times in different ways, or how do you draw that feeling out, or not at all? How do you kind of play with the expectations of that kind of happening later on down the line? Because I think that was one of the final lifts you did, I think, and that's kind of, you know, for me, the point of the piece. So then, yeah, I'm waiting for that to happen whilst you're doing all of the other impressive stuff, but that's in the back of my mind, and I think that's maybe something important to think about as you're developing this into something longer, maybe.
Of course. I think in response to your specific question about the audience being concerned about answers, I think for me, what I'm looking for is for the artist to be as articulate as possible about the questions they're posing about their practice or about the work, and not to be so concerned. You know, I've heard it quite a lot over the last few days about, well, you can make of it whatever you want. For me, that's very lazy of the artist. But to shift the focus away from not what it means, but how it might be read. So you're playing with the possibilities of how the spectator can negotiate a whole variety of responses to the work, rather than take from it what you want. And I think that process in the construction and the compositional strategies you use in the work, I think similar to what Tom said, opens up a space in which I can negotiate the possibilities of what the work might mean for me. Not that it carries a single meaning, but there's a field in which responses can be placed, but that field of responses is orchestrated and created through the compositional strategies you choose, not I'm going to make it like this, you decide if it has any benefit for you or not. I think that's a real problem.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we have to cut it short, so let's not applause for them. You want to answer? No, I mean, of course, if you want to say something.
No, I'm thinking if I got the point, but I will ask you later if I.
Sorry, guys, really sorry. An applause for them. So, Andrea and Noemi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if you have no name on the program, you're just the Presente Futuro Festival winners.
Someone coming from somewhere. Okay.
So-
Italians' fault. Because
Yeah, they said we're Italian. We don't mind. We like it. But so yeah, Generation Y is not an early idea. It's already an hour show, and it's made. It's 3 performers on stage, 3 women, an Italian actress, an Irish UK actress, and Noemi, who's from Spain. It started as much bigger ideas, almost like a utopia. Trying to create a project with 7 European performers from different countries not living in the same city. And we did residencies together, like trying to ask the question. It was like big philosophical questions, but somehow realizing at that time in 2014 that we belonged to a generation, something that now is quite obvious because it's called Generation Y or Millennials, but maybe 4 years ago, it was more of a blurry idea that our feelings could be shaped somehow into a name, Generation Y. So that was the beginning, but then the show evolved into asking, basically into connecting a lot with the idea of death and loss and maybe losing that ability to dream and even invent such mad projects that might not take you anywhere or might well take you somewhere. So now it's only 3 actresses, and it's normally it's a big event because we all meet and we don't live in the same city, so it's very, already there's a pre-existent emotional sense that this thing is fragile and it's gonna be over, like our youth. Oh, yeah, this is related to that. So yeah, I don't know, that's the show. So you saw 20 minutes of it, Noemi's reply to the question somehow of what do you want for your future. And I mean, we don't have a specific question, it's more like we like to share the experience with different audiences, so if anyone wants to comment about like, dislike, or reflecting on the show, we're very happy to hear.
Yeah, so please anybody feel free to answer her question, please, now, someone.
I can ask a question if it's very
Yeah.
dramatic. I mean, especially to the people that don't belong to the millennial generation. That's to me the most important part.
Why are you looking at them?
Just look around you like you're not facing someone specifically.
I think we were discussing it afterwards, and there's a lot of assumptions about who are the millennials.
Yeah.
And I know that I could see what was being translated, but in a couple of cases that we know, including ourselves, we are the millennials for our generation, and I'm talking about the older ones. It's been reversed, you know, going to college, saying what's the future. All those questions are still there, but I think
VR, which is what we're doing at the moment.
So there's a lot of assumptions about age and generation, but I did like the way that you portrayed what people's dreams are still when they're 60 or 65 or whatever. So that was brilliant.
Yeah, we actually don't even like the idea of Generation Y, because as we say in the show, it's like a marketing invention. Like they market patterns of behavior just to sell more into certain objectives. But yeah, maybe we could make it clearer that it's not so much about generation, but about questions everyone has.
Someone else?
No. It was just when you were old person, and the questioner was asking what had happened. You said she was dead, and she didn't respond. Right? Did I misunderstand? You when the microphone. When the microphone well, yes, when the microphone voice asked what happened in the past, and was told that she herself was no longer alive. Did I misunderstand? And she didn't respond.
Me?
Yeah.
So she said that I was dead.
No, she's the questioner.
So I asked her what happened to her
Yes.
lover.
Yes.
Which is me.
Okay.
I don't know if that was clear. So yeah, she basically killed me.
Yes,
In her
and you
imaginary future, and I
you
didn't respond.
Yep.
No.
That's my question.
That's it. Was that the last question or comment about Generation Y? Here. Thank you, Greta.
I just wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit more about the other two people that we didn't get to see. If it's sort of like 3 parallel stories, or if it was more about the differences and stuff like that.
Yes. It's 3 mad people. It's like sort of transposed versions of themselves. So one of them is the Italian version, which is she's a very good impersonator. So she kind of like in 10 minutes manages to live all these lives that she wished she had, and then goes completely mad. And then the other, the Irish woman, is more like the refusal to the question. Like, I don't want to answer this question because it's not a question that I relate to, and she runs away from the theater. And well, basically every one of them opens a different vision of the question somehow. That's a bit the idea. Very different energies.
I want to see it now.
Okay, so
else?
a round of applause
Thank you
for
very much.
Generation Y. So it's been almost 2 hours. We've been asking the bosses if we could skip the part of the prizes, but they have been pushing us to make them. So I'll ask Lorenza and Daniele to get ready.
Yeah.
This is our. You can go wherever you find some space. This is our gift for you, because as you already know, Bee Festival gives prizes, but some of you might go home without anything, and we don't want you to go home with empty hands. So we are going to. Now, first you have to prepare your karmas.
Yeah, and
So we're starting with the early ideas. Since guys, you're not in the competition. I'm sorry. You're not going to receive the Feedback Cafe prize, but we want to support your works and the development of your productions with these 2 special prizes, which are 1 karma
each, but they are illustrated by Lorenza Guerrini,
personally
a famous Italian contemporary artist.
Lorenza Guerrini is that girl in front of you, so elegantly dressed. To develop the work.
Yeah, consider it. Yeah.
So this was for
production budget.
This was for the early ideas, and then the actual prizes for the other in the competition.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first and the last edition of the Feedback Cafe Awards, presented by Daniele Pennati
e Lorenza Guerrini. Grazie. Questo va? Sì. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here presenting such an unimportant award. Thank you.
Thank you. But let's start with the first award of the day.
Tum. Tum. Tum.
For the flexibility, sinuosity, and synchronicity, or synchronicity, or I don't know, shown crawling on the dance floor, the award for the best dance floor cleaning routine goes to Tsunami by Giulia
Give it
Graspalet.
up! Thank you. Enjoy your cup. Okay.
And so the
Second
next
award.
prize.
For showing that the nights belong to lovers, no matter what their age is, the award for the best intergenerational interpretation of Patti Smith goes to Aquí Siempre, Here Always by Poliana Lima. Three, okay. Third word. Yeah. Tum, tum.
For the courage of being an alcoholic and still a collectionist of knives. The award for the best suicidal attempt on stage goes to Take Care of Yourself by Mark Osternoff. So the next.
No,
Sì.
Okay. For the striving for the impossible, while your friend only helps with music, the Never Give Up award goes to Sisyphus by New Perspectives. Tonight we have to perform. We stay here. Okay. Okay. Next. Bye.
Mine. Okay.
Tum, tum.
For demonstrating
Tum,
to the show business
tum,
industry
tum,
that creativity can beat the
tum,
crisis,
tum, tum, tum,
the
tum,
award
tum,
for
tum,
the
tum,
most
tum,
eco-friendly and
tum,
sustainable
tum,
show
tum,
goes to We've Got Each Other by
Compliment, very compliment. Compliment a tutti. Yes, you can use it. It's a homemade cup. Okay, vado. For connecting and reconnecting beautiful music and beautiful movements in so many ways, the awards for the strongest instigation to use Shazam during a performance goes to Guided Tour inside the dance performance number 24 by Laboratorio d'Azione Scenica Vladimir Tsekov. Thank you.
That is the end. Thank you. Thank
Di
you.
qualcosa?
It's the end.
So, yeah, thanks guys. It's been an honor to have you here, and thanks everybody for being with us in the Feedback Cafe. Thanks Isla and Miguel for giving us this opportunity. I know you have to make an announcement, right? I know that someone has to make, but I have to speak a while. So, my name is Daniele, and I come from Florence. You have to make an announcement, don't you? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There will be someone there with the list of. Un segundito, Olmo. There will be someone there with the list of people who are leaving tomorrow and when to pick up the taxis and all that. So you can go find someone in the Selina in the Karma desk. By the Karma desk. In the welcome desk, which is where it says welcome desk. And thank you very much, Sotterraneo, for doing a wonderful feedback. It's been wonderful to have you all this time, and we... For them, yeah.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Thanks, guys. We're going to rehearse now. For those who are interested, England won new 2-something. So we all happily going to be at the shows of the night, right? We are. See you later. Bye, guys.